Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of the Chris Andrew podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about, I guess, the elephant in the room, which is what is the podcast about? Since it's been out, a lot of you have very, very lovingly been asking, what's it about? What are you doing? What can I expect to hear? So all the things that hold the podcast together are uh, things that I'm organically interested in pursuing. And so, what's that? It's broad, to be honest, which is tough because I wish that I was going for a really easy commercial win. Like this podcast is about, the story of everybody who lost their virginity and all the different ins and outs of what that is, so to speak. And, like some catchy hook or something like that. Or, this podcast is just about the Adelaide Crows Football Club. That'd be pretty bleak. And so, I've intentionally not tried to narrow it down like that, and I'm trying to cast as widely as possible, as I hope has been obvious in the first few episodes. And I hope that hasn't been too alienating. If it is, what can I do? It's what I'm trying to do here, which is pursue my own organic interests and hope that who I am and what those things are over time forms a clear picture of what this space is for. But that said, I thought to reward you for listening/watching at all, I should explicitly have a crack at being intellectually honest and transparent and telling you what that is. So that's what I'm going to be exploring today. Okay, so the first thing that really attracts me about the idea of doing a podcast is the chance to talk to people that you don't normally get to hear from, or talking to the people that you normally do get to hear from, but about different angles. Because so often people who are in the public sphere, we see them talking about the same type of thing, or, musicians, we get to hear what they say about music. Athletes, we get to see them on the sports field and then hear them grunt out a few words afterwards. But is perhaps the most interesting thing about these people may never come up in the forums that they're normally in. So I definitely want to explore that type of thing. I'm also interested in talking to the people that sort of silent evidence thing, people who don't appear ever in the public realm, because there's every reason that they will be as compelling or more compelling in certain areas of their lives than the people that we hear and see from all the time. So I'm really interested in giving a space to the things that are underrepresented generally, not just because it's an intellectual curiosity for me, which it is, but also because I think that there's a utility to all of our decision making to realize the different ways that we all live that we don't normally get to see. So, for example, if you're an impressionable teenager and you see through social media, or in earlier days, television and radio or whatever, newspapers, certain ideas of success or certain images of happiness, you may think that that is the optimal path for you yourself to find those, when, of course, a lot of the people that are in the public sphere are really outlier representations of humanity. They may have extreme personalities that cause them to fixate on particular things and find happiness in a way that you will never be able to, or find success in a way that you'll never be able to. And so I think it's important to have the chance to look at what different lives look like. But another thing is I'm continuously drawn in a way, and this is a harder one to talk about because it stems from who I am as a person, but I find that I'm really drawn disbelief to a lot of the ways that we collectively as a species make decisions and how we prioritize our values and structure our societies. And I mean, disbelief is the name of my most recent album for exactly this reason. It's like a magnet of despair to me to feel the gap between how things are and how they could be. I feel that at a real personal level all the time in any manner of things. Whether it's seeing the signage on a street that I think could be better, or the way taxes are collected, or it's just any number of things. It's my particular cross to bear is that I have very vivid abstract reasoning, and also enjoy taking the time to think about how things are and how they could be improved. So that's a well of constant frustration and excitement that leads me to be curious, not just about one topics such as the Adelaide Crows or whatever, but who I'm not particularly interested in at all. But instead to, that general energy of like, oh, here's how things could be better. It means I'm not just interested in transport policy, or I'm not just interested in, how we go to war and how we forge peace, but kind of everything, because everything could be. I think there's a case to make that many things across our lives and societies could be significantly better, and I like taking the chance to decode that. So that's going to be the theme of a lot of conversations inevitably. But also, I'm interested in, as an artist, I'm interested in creative processes and creative people. And I think that's kind of the same. It's on the same dodecahedron as the previous thing I just mentioned of like seeing the capacity for things to be different, because, creative capacities are not distributed evenly. And those who have high creative capacities, they experience certain ways of being in the world that can be alienating, but also can offer a lot of opportunities to leverage, and they manifest in different ways in how those people are in society. So I like exploring that and looking at that. And this sort of general flavor and vibe of, it's you could see why it's not a one sentence answer to what's the podcast about, other than things that I'm interested in and people that I'm interested in. Because it's a little esoteric, so I apologize if it sounds a bit rambly so far, but I am doing my best to nail down what is a pretty splayed reality, which is that for whatever reason, I'm interested in a lot of different things, and I am not interested in sort of cynically wielding a space to get a particular type of social outcome. I think that there's a real benefit to just sharing generally so that we can all have information to make better decisions, and also, just ping off our own ideas, just have a different kind of discourse to the one that we typically get with most media interactions, and many conversations and many representations of how people are and how they live and what they think. And maybe I should speak. I'll speak to some of the dream guests that I want to have on the show, because I think one of them in particular frames a lot of the things that I'm interested in talking about and exploring. And it's already interesting to see how that's manifested in a lot of the conversations that we've had just in the first month of the podcast. And that is Dr. Ian McGilchrist. If you're not familiar with his work, I really recommend checking him out. He is a psychiatrist. He initially studied, I think, English literature, and then was dissatisfied with criticism. There's something about the nature of writing words about books that kind of didn't capture for him what the experience of great literary works was about and what it was. And so I think this led him somehow to study anatomy and then become a physician. And he has two great books, potentially more, but he has two that I know of. One is called The Master and His Emissary, and the other is called The Matter with Things. And the theses of these works is that the brain, as we know, is divided into two hemispheres. Why should it be that they do different things? We sort of have mirroring across all other functions in evolution and the natural world. And the sort of mimetic conception has been that the right half of the brain is for sort of chaotic creativity and exploring, and then the left half of the brain is for order and correct processing of information. But he has a thesis that those hemispheric differences are real and do represent important differences in the way of being, because a lot of them have been sort of discredited out of the mainstream because they're a bit shorthand in their understanding. But he identifies them as real, and it says that our conceptualization of the function of the two hemispheres is totally wrong, and that it is in fact the right hemisphere, which is the one that is associated with the creativity and exploring, that has the capacity to see things as their whole, whereas the left hemisphere, which was associated with having good order of information and understanding of things, is actually, because it does have that semantic engagement with things, it misses the picture of what things are. So yes, there are numerous experiments that he does and cites that point to this, but his subsequent premise from that is that all of our society is too subservient to the left brain, in that we give a value to information systems, things that can be catalogued, and for all of that have lost or are increasingly losing the greater understanding of things. And I guess he would characterize as a sort of the sublimeness of life and sublimeness of certain things gets squeezed for sort of the something that which can be quantified and explained as being more valuable when it is in fact anything but. And so that is a really compelling idea to me as an extraordinarily right-brained person, and kind of maps onto my frustrations and experience of the world. And so it's dangerous to talk about this because I started just when my son was born a couple of years ago. I started writing a book on this, but having now 2 young kids, I'm very, very slow in the progress. And I know it's not a good idea to talk about writing a book when you are, because it discharges your motivation to continue doing it because you start sharing some of the ideas. But yes, it is without going into the details, suffice to say that it is a fixation of mine that gap in seeing how we're very, as a species and a society, very, very good at mapping out exactly why something should be a particular way, like making an economic case or financial case or even a logistical reasoned case for why something should be, and ending up with an outcome that experientially is significantly impoverishing of whatever it might be, or the experience wastes the opportunity, or it throws out perhaps the most important part of something for an expedient gain on another end. And there are just so many examples of this everywhere you look. One that I'm really obsessed with actually is that all of the countries in the world, imagine which is the second largest exporter of food. So number 1 is the USA, and you can imagine why that would be. It's a very rich country. It's very industrialized, advanced, networked, navigable river systems, fertile soil, many climates, hundreds of millions of people to work the land, etc. Vast country. That's number 1. Number 2, just cycle through your mind what it might be. I'll give you 5 seconds so you don't have to pause it. It's the Netherlands. The Netherlands, a tiny country with high population density as well. And yes, they're the second largest exporter of food, above Russia, above Australia, above China, France, every other country except for the USA. And so I find myself, where I live in Hungary at the moment, regularly eating produce from the Netherlands. And it's mostly awful. Like it's truly awful. Not always, but like as if I go to Aldi and get tomatoes from the Netherlands, they're in my friend who's from the Netherlands jokingly said to me that they come in more packaging, and the packaging tastes better than the food, and it kind of feels like that. And I find myself wondering, because in Hungary there's plenty of sunshine, it's covered in fantastic soil, and the tomatoes that grow here are delicious, and I could get them getting them from around the corner. But there's some series of economic cascading decisions that means it's a superior option for somebody to sell this product here, to train them in or cart them in by truck from the Netherlands than it is to cart them in from around the corner. And similarly, the ones that are produced here, will be sent. The Hungarians all complain that the best produce is sent for export, in Germany and Austria. And it's the whole system just seems so shit and stupid. But because it can be explained by a system to be a more profitable idea, I sit here eating Dutch tomatoes while the ones that are grown around the corner are shipped potentially to the Netherlands to be sold. It reminds me very much of, I don't know if you've read Catch-22, and there's no way to find out because it's a one-way microphone. But the system there with the eggs, where Milo's selling the eggs, and because of the skewed economics of it, his say, for example, buying them from one island for 5 cents and then selling them for 3 cents, but it actually works out great, and nobody wants to upend the system because everybody has a share. I kind of feel like there's any number of things in modern living that can be captured in that same insanity. And I think that Dr. Ian McGilchrist's idea about types of thinking and the hemispheres of the brain dominance are really a compelling shorthand for mapping how that phenomenon occurs. So that's going to be the center of a lot of things that are going to be explored in this space. And as I mentioned, it's already come up in conversations. One listener, my friend Patrick, said another episode of the enshittification of everything with Chris Andrew, because it came up in the conversation with Lucy Sugarman, singer-songwriter, and Dr. Jamie Freestone. The same ideas would come up, obviously, that will be a gravity for this show. I'm not naturally at all a pessimistic person. I'm very, very optimistic, and I don't like to get sucked into the idea that we are in a particularly interesting or unique time. I think that all times are interesting and unique for their own reasons, but it does seem to feel like, for all that that's true, that I think that that Lenin quote that what did he say? There are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. I think that it's fairly observable that there would be any number of things that could happen that would cause more people to experience disruptions or more systems to be disrupted or collapse or whatever than in some periods and in others. And it does feel very much like we're in a few of those simultaneously now. They're famously mapped by other people, things related to the internet tech revolution, smartphone revolution in particular, and all the sort of sub things that come off of that, app-based dating, algorithmic-based attention hijacking. So I can't even think of other things because my consciousness is so hijacked by the algorithms. But I think there's a case that the divorce that we're experiencing from nature, and our physical bodies, that there are a few things that are sort of step shift or exponentially different to how not just our most recent generations, but in many instances, every single generation of humans up until now, how we've experienced the world is radically different to now. And just to pick some big ones to keep you interested, like it's always striking to me that things like organic, like something like food being organic in that it's grown with minimal, and obviously the classifications are challengeable, but minimal chemical interference and additional preservatives and whatever, that was just 100% of food until very, very recently. And now it's a small minority of food. And how things like basically everybody on the planet, and up until maybe our grandparents' generation, or people my age's grandparents' generation, would have lived near just gorgeous natural features, clean rivers and pristine wilderness. I mean, even the fact that we even have to have the classification of wilderness or untouched nature, things like that, wouldn't have really needed to exist until 100 or so years ago for most people on the planet. And now, um, so many of our social things are mapped to the stars and the moon, and now we have really very little. I mean, most of us have very little one-to-one physical engagement with those changes across the span of our lives, and they would have been definitive ones for, again, almost every generation up until now. I'm not running around saying this means the world's ending or anything like that. I just think it's interesting that they're phenomenally different ways of experiencing reality, and some of it impoverishes us, and similar. On the other hand, we have tremendous wealth opportunities that are unparalleled for our entire species until now, and don't have to worry about certain things that every other member of our species did have to worry about. But we still have many of the evolutionary ticks and hangovers and epigenetic wiring to think about such things. So that's the things under that subheading. There are so many, and they're so significant, I think. And I think that there's more space to explore them than is being currently utilized. I think that's a discourse in particular that's captured by the more fearful examples, which are bad. Like there are clear correlations between things like, or seem to be. I mean, I'm not the expert, but seem to be clear correlations between things like Instagram usage and young teen girl suicide. I think maybe across all ages, but particularly in that one, it's significantly higher for like 12-year-olds or something frightening like that. And and the stories, I hope by now to you well-known story that people are having a lot less sex, but particularly young men, they have the least sex. And there are big consequences of that, not least for the people who are in those demographics. The declining birth rate is another interesting one, but I think that these big ones, because they are scary to the people who value the consequences that they're shifting, that they can hijack a lot more of the, not just the discourse, but the type of discourse that's had around those things. And so I'm looking forward to having conversations that explore that in perhaps more neutral, or at least more open way, and also looking forward to bring others to our attention that maybe slip under the radar because they're not as sexy as the disastrous ones, or the ones with significant consequences. I am likely to talk to a lot of people that don't seem to have things in common with each other, because another thing, my own disposition is that I'm really, luckily or unluckily, I really am genuinely interested in everyone that I've encountered. Yeah, I don't think I've ever really met anyone that I wouldn't think would be a person with, a distinct view of the world that would be useful for others to encounter. And so I'll do my best to honor that and extract hopefully value for all of you, who I really cannot overstate how appreciative I am of you listening even to this far into this episode on its own. And so, yes, so being interested in everyone, I'm happy to talk to people that perhaps might not get a run elsewhere. And also, I don't know, do you tell me what you think of this type of format as well, because I am interested in doing this sort of verbal processing to explore ideas, but I'm not sure. I'm from an Australian cultural background. I think that it's hard to take a stage like this and be like, I'm worthy of listening to, and you should get a benefit from just hearing my very ideas. So my instinct is to shy away from that and to try and find value for you in other ways. But that's in constant tension with the confidence that I have in the strength of some of my ideas and approach to interrogating things. So, a little encouragement will go a long way if it's something that you genuinely like, because I'm happy to do these on any number of topics. I have my own secreted obsessions as well as the things that we talk about here, and I'm only too happy to explore them. I started to do some of them in my other YouTube channel, Second Look with Chris Andre, but the editing of those took a back seat once I had the two babies, because you just need so much contiguous time to edit good jokes into videos when you're not a film director. I'm not a graphic designer or whatever, so I probably do a lot more clicking type of in processes that would be horrific for professionals to watch. But yeah, I'm very happy to do that stuff here, which gets I guess the final point. This channel, I want to be useful to you. And so if you have anyone that you would like me to talk to, or a type of conversation you'd like me to have, or if you think there's a topic that you wish more light was brought to, please just get in touch. Yeah, always very happy to field suggestions and to work towards things that are going to be good for you. And, similarly, if you're like, oh, I don't like it when you talk about this, find a kind way to tell me that, and I'll definitely listen, because ultimately this is not a Dear Diary project, and this is not, I don't have a cynical path laid out to achieve fame and win a Senate seat or anything like that from this. Like, this is just an exploration to share that I want to be valuable in building a community of listeners and viewers, and seeing where it all goes. So over to you. If you have any strong ideas, get in touch. But mostly, thank you so much for being on the journey at all. I hope that we can get a ratio of gold in our mining that makes it worthwhile to listen to, because I know that from doing the Rank Ideas podcast with Nick Delatovic, you never know what the small nuggets of information you can encounter, or different ways of thinking of things that you can encounter, and how significantly they can improve your decision making, or improve your understanding of the world, or improve your well-being. And yeah, what a privilege it would be to get to offer some of that to you and to share it. So even just for me to do it here is already a privilege. So thanks for enabling that, and extra particular thanks to my Patreon patrons. You know who you are. You'll be on the screen at the end with the music, which I made myself. Oh, that's the other thing. Because I make music, there's going to be an outlier number of musical conversations, and I hope that that's okay. I mean, it is okay, because you could just skip it. This is the new world. You don't have to sit down with your family, be disappointed throughout 30 minutes. You just skip on to the next episode, and you'll be right as rain. With your family, though, make sure they're all listening. Cool. Thanks to Patreon patrons. Once again, couldn't do any of these projects without you, and relish the opportunity to get to do it. On to the next episode. Who knows who I'll be talking to?